All right, thank you for tuning in to Chompin at the Bit. This is episode 20. We're going to be taking a look back at week 4 in the NFL season. And we're going to take a look at my, segment every week I do after the games are played. 3 up, 3 down. We're also going to take a look at some other observations I made from this weekend. We're going to take a look at my week 4 picks, see how well I did. And we're also going to take a look at coaching carousel, as the first shoe, as you may say, fell this weekend as a coach was fired. So we'll take a look at that, see maybe who's next on the chopping block. But first we're going to start with, this was a special week in the season as we had 2 games on Monday night. Normally don't have that unless it's the opening weekend of the season. As you all know, was Saturday morning. Word got around that Cam Newton tested positive for COVID-19. So they had to push back the Patriots-Chiefs game. They were thinking about Monday or Tuesday. They decided to do it on Monday at around 7 o'clock, while the regularly scheduled Monday night game, Falcons-Packers, was played at 9:05-ish. So yeah. I mean, it's an interesting situation, as, it still looks like Cam Newton was the only one to test positive on the Patriots team. So that's good. But now there are questions as to whether he'll be able to start next week's game against the Denver Broncos. Because he has to go through some protocol, He has to have 2 negative tests in a row and some other hurdles he has to jump through. So, the time clock is already in a crunch for him to play next week. So it's looking like most likely the following week is when he'll play. And then with that, I guess we'll go into the coaching carousel, because that was another big news item. So Bill O'Brien, the head coach and GM for the Houston Texans, he was fired this morning. And first looking at it, the obvious questions are, was it the right move? Was it the right time and all that? And I understand why Houston did it. I think what Houston's actually doing here was they were firing probably Bill O'Brien, the GM, not for what he did as a coach. Because Bill O'Brien has made a lot of questionable moves the past couple of off seasons. Trading DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. And then bringing in Brandon Cooks. And they have 3 speedsters at wide receiver, yet their offense doesn't look that great. He didn't re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. They're still kind of basing their defense around J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt's been nicked up past couple of years. They were seen as a team that probably should have been in an AFC title game at some point during his tenure, but hasn't happened. And especially look at last playoffs, where they actually had the Chiefs down by 21, I believe, in the first half, only to have the Chiefs score 40 straight. So that didn't really look good for them. Now, one thing that I can say may not be necessarily fair to Bill O'Brien, the Texans have had probably the toughest schedule through the first 4 weeks of the season. They played Ravens, the Chiefs, who else? The Seahawks, I believe. Yeah, and they just played the Vikings. Now the Vikings were 0-3 just like them, but those first 3 games pretty tough. So there is not to say that, after these first 4 games, he wouldn't have been able to turn it around and, turn the team around and probably get them back into contention in that division. You never know. But, this is a move that a lot of fans and analysts have been calling for since last offseason, so makes sense. But looking at that, now that the Texans have kind of, I guess, opened the floodgates in terms of, coach firing and all that, now you have to look around the rest of the league and see who are some of these other coaches that, might want to be careful of their situation, because they could be the next Bill O'Brien and be out the door. Now you have your normal ones. You have Adam Gase with the Jets, Matt Patricia with the Lions, Dan Quinn with the Falcons, Vic Fangio with the Broncos. Not really sure about that one, but there's some coaches out there. So don't expect this Bill O'Brien move to be the one and only firing of the season. As we're starting to get into bye weeks and all that, you might start seeing some of these teams make moves. Even if it's not just the head coach, could be some defensive coordinators like Mike Nolan in Dallas. Just around the league, there's a lot of teams that are underperforming. A lot of defensive and offensive units that are underperforming as well. So the Bill O'Brien move might get it going in terms of teams looking to make some changes to their staff. But for all the news off the field, let's get onto the field of week 4. And we'll start with 3 up, 3 down segment, where I pick 3 aspects of the weekend that I found impressive and the 3 that had me scratching my head. So we'll start with the 3 up. First one, I got to give it to the Cleveland Browns. They went down to Dallas. I believe I called this as a potential game that could turn into a shootout, and that's exactly what happened. The Browns won 49-38. Baker Mayfield didn't really have to do too much, from the quarterback position, because the Browns scored a lot of points in the run game. They ran a couple of reverses. They ran a trick play with a toss to Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry threw it over the top to Odell Beckham for a touchdown. Odell Beckham scored on a reverse himself. So, the Browns definitely showed, this is the offensive production that a lot of people are expecting out of the Browns most weeks. Maybe not to score 49 points, of course. That's a lot of points, but the Browns went through stretches of that game where they looked unstoppable. And with the amount of weapons they have on offense, you should be able to see more consistent production like that. Next, point number 2, Buffalo Bills. They've continued their winning ways. They're now 4-0. They got another impressive win against the Las Vegas Raiders. Josh Allen performed well. But the person I kind of want to spotlight with them, Stephon Diggs. Now, last year, Stephon Diggs was with the Vikings. The biggest moment for him was the, Minneapolis Miracle against the Saints in the playoff game, where Diggs caught the pass down the sideline, ran it in for the walk-off touchdown to advance the Vikings to the NFC Championship game, where they ended up losing. But, that was a big play for him. He kind of fell out of favor with Minnesota, went over to Buffalo, and against the Raiders, he had a great game. He's had a great season so far. And he's given that Buffalo team a number 1 wideout, which is, unlocked Josh Allen's potential. He's been playing well. And the offense just looks great right now. They still have that defense that's one of the, in the top 10 in the league, maybe top 5. They got Josh Norman back finally this week, and he definitely helped in the secondary. So, as I said in last week's recap episode. It's clear that Buffalo is going to be there in that division the whole way. At least that's how it seems after first 4 games. The Patriots will be there, and it's kind of a 2-team race right now. But yeah, it definitely looks like Buffalo's in it for the long haul. Now the third, point for the up category. I'm looking at a couple of young quarterbacks, a couple of rookie quarterbacks who, one was given the starting job from week 1. Another one was forced into the starting job after injury to the guy in front of him. But I got to say that they both have been performing well. And that's Joe Burrow with the Bengals and Justin Herbert with the Chargers. Both, rookies are going to make mistakes and all that. But these two quarterbacks, Burrow is the only answer in Cincinnati, of course. But Herbert has played well enough that if Tyrod Taylor is ready to go at some point, I kind of think at this point you just let Herbert keep going. Against that Buccaneers team, he led that offense. They put up 31. It wasn't enough to get the win, but he had some impressive throws downfield. He can scramble out of the pocket, and he's shown that he's tough as well because he took some big hits when he did scramble along the sideline. He, bounced up. He kept going. He hung in there with Tom Brady, throw for throw. So, hats off to him. Joe Burrow, they got their first win over the weekend. But, Burrow has shown as well he can make, big league throws. He's also shown some toughness as well because he's taken a lot of hits in the pocket. He can run a little bit, but his biggest asset is his arm. So those two teams definitely have their guys at that position. And when you're a struggling team, finding your quarterback is the number one option for you. If you can get that guy there, then you can start filling in the other pieces, and now you have something to look forward to. So Cincinnati and LA, you definitely have two guys there that should be there for the coming, 5, 8, 10 years down the line, and you can try to build a winner around. Now, for the 3 down part. So these are just 3 things that I noticed and just really make me wonder what we're doing here. First one, it's not even a team, not a couple of teams, not a player, a unit, and anything like that. It's actually a whole division. And I'm talking about the NFC East. This division is just, it's terrible. Like, if you pull up ESPN right now, look at the standings, you'll notice that the Eagles are actually leading that division right now with a record of 1 win, 2 losses, 1 tie. And it's because of that 1 tie why they're leading the division. You have Washington football team. They have a reason for not being good this year. They still have a young quarterback they're going through. They just had a coaching change. So they're a team in transition. Understand that. You have the Giants. The Giants are a team where they have a second-year quarterback. He's still kind of finding his way. And they don't really have the necessary talent to be a winner right now. So you can understand that. Also, just to backtrack a little bit, with the coaches on the hot seat, Joe Judge with the Giants is another one of them, but that's for another episode. But yeah, the Giants, you understand. But the Eagles and those Cowboys. The Eagles, they finally got their win. Carson Wentz looked all right against San Francisco. But you can't really take too much stock into that. The 49ers are missing a lot of guys on defense, a lot of guys on offense. So the fact that he looked well against that team, I don't know how much stock I'm supposed to take into that. So I will be, paying attention to see if maybe the Eagles can run away with that division at this point. Although from the way it looks at it, from the way that it's looking right now, that division has 8-8 tops as a division winner. Might even be one of those instances where a team wins that division below 500, like 7-9, or if it's the Eagles, like 7-8-1, something like that. The Cowboys. Now, once again, the Cowboys came into this year, a lot of hype, a lot of, people thinking that they could actually be in the Super Bowl or at least the NFC title game. And this team is far from it. Their defense is terrible. They can't stop anybody from scoring. Their run defense stinks. Pass defense, subpar. Offensively, they have a lot of big names, but they are not producing anywhere near where anybody's expecting them to, because this is a team that should not be 1-3. And if you look at it, their one win was that crazy game against the Falcons where they came back. Falcons didn't jump on the onside kick, all that. So the Cowboys could very easily be 0-4 in this division. And the sad thing is, if they were 0-4, they would just be, a game out? So hopefully all that Cowboy talk quiets down, because clearly they're not one of the top teams in the NFC. But yeah, enough about them. Second down point. I mean, this is becoming an every week thing, but I gotta say it again. The Falcons. Granted, they're playing against a tough team in Green Bay. I can acknowledge that. But there's just so many of the same issues week in and week out with this team. It is just frustrating to watch. Dan Quinn again, you're looking at it like, why do you still have your job? Julio Jones injured yet again. Stop me when you hear something different. Oddly enough, Calvin Ridley didn't have any catches. But then again, if I was Green Bay, he's probably the one guy I'd pay the most attention to in that passing game anyway. But Ridley has performed well this season. I'm not going to hold that against him. Todd Gurley gives you a couple of runs in like the first half. By the second half, he's useless. And that's just offensively. The offensive line still can't block anybody. Defensively, they can't cover anybody. I know they have some injuries in the secondary, but even when they were healthy, wide receivers and tight ends are finding wide open areas in the back end. Sometimes they're beating them over the top. Teams can methodically beat them down the field. However you want to beat them, you can have it at this point. The defensive line still can't pressure any quarterback other than Grady Jarrett. He's the only guy in that defense who's performing well. So yeah, what else is there to say? It's all terrible right now. And then the last, the Jets. How can I have a 3-down segment and not talk about the Jets? Who, outside of the Falcons, probably the worst team in the league. The Jets I'm talking about here. Adam Gase, as I talked about with Bill O'Brien, is another guy who should probably be gone at some point. Probably should have happened after their Thursday night game, but he made it through that. He's made it through the weekend. Maybe they're waiting until their bye week. I don't know. We'll have to see. But if you watch the Jets, you can easily see why they haven't won a game. There's questions about Sam Darnold. I get that. To me, I don't know if it's more of Sam Darnold or Adam Gase in that system. I feel like if you bring in the right right coaching and like head coach, quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, I think Darnold can be a decent quarterback in this league because he can scramble, he can run, and he's got a pretty good arm. What else do you want from him? But outside of that, don't think of this. Their top running back is Frank Gore. Frank Gore is like 39 years old. He should not be their number one running back. And it shows in his numbers. He doesn't get that many yards. He doesn't have any real explosion. Frank Gore should be your short yardage running back, goal line running back. He can do that. But your top running back, no. Wide receivers, they have a lot of guys that you wouldn't even know who they were. So, I probably couldn't name... Yeah, I can't even think of any of them off the top of my head. I knew Robbie Anderson. He left, so, yeah. Defensively, they don't have Jamal Adams back there. Clearly miss him. Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator. If you might remember the name, he's the guy who got in trouble when he's with the Saints, the whole bounty gate and everything. And if you look at that Jets defense, like the Falcon defense, undisciplined all over the place. They get a lot of penalties with late hits and all kinds of stupid penalties. That comes from Greg Williams because he's a guy who loves the dirty play of defense. Just going to say it. So, yeah, that's my 3 up, 3 down. I'm sure you may have some questions about that. So, put that in the comment section. But moving on, some other quick observations I saw from the week. Teddy Bridgewater with the Carolina Panthers. I finally got to see him play a little bit. He actually looks like he's come back from that gruesome leg injury where some of his teammates and some people around the football world were thinking that Bridgewater may not even play again. But he made a couple of plays in the pocket. He made a couple of juke moves in the open field. So he's shown that he is still a threat running the ball. But he was efficient as a passer. Had a couple of touchdowns. And he looked good. The Panthers are a team who wasn't supposed to figure anywhere in terms of the division or playoffs. They still might not, but at least right now they're 2-2. Which is great. That's better than I thought they would be after 4 games. So, heads up to Teddy Bridgewater. He's a guy that a lot of people root for. He played a couple of games last year with the Saints when Breeze was hurt. He looked pretty good there. Turned that into the starting job in Carolina. And he's definitely shown down there that he can be a good veteran presence, but make plays on the field. So, there you go. Another one. Talked about Cam Newton missing the game against the Chiefs. Patriots went into that game. A lot of people thought it was going to be a blowout, mismatch, and all that. I got to say, watch the game. Yes, the Patriots lost. So it was 26-10. But the Patriots left some points on the field. Brian Hoyer did not look like a 12-year veteran. Give it up to Bill Belichick for making the move to Jarrett Stidham, the young guy. He came in a tough situation. He threw a pick 6, wasn't his fault. Went through Edelman's hands. Matthew took it the other way. Then he threw a pick late as he was trying to make a play. So I give it to him for that. But the observation I did make was Bill Belichick came up with a defensive game plan that worked perfectly against the Chiefs. Now, if you think about the Chiefs, all those offensive weapons, they only had 26 points. 7 of them came from the defense, so the offense really was only responsible for 19 points. How many teams out there could hold that offense at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City to 19 points offensively? And what they did was they didn't send too much pressure at Patrick Mahomes, because a lot of times you send a lot of blitzers and stuff, he'll kill you because he'll get it out of his hand quickly. And, Tyreek Hill or Kelsey or Watkins can make plays once they get the ball in their hand. And that's how they rack up yards. So Belichick and that defense, they rushed the 3 down linemen, sometimes 4 down linemen. Hopefully they could cover long enough for those 3 or 4 guys to get through the offensive line, put a little bit of pressure on Mahomes, force him into like throwing the ball away or trying to fit the ball into a tight window. And it was very effective. So even though they lost that game, I was definitely proud of the Patriots' fight, and they were in that game. That 26-10 score is not indicative of how that game went. Last observation from the week: Josh Allen and Russell Wilson, to me, are the MVP favorites after the first quarter of the season. And I don't think it's even close. Yeah, you might say, well, Mahomes and Jackson with the Ravens. But I think Josh Allen and Russell Wilson have been the best quarterbacks in the NFL through the first 4 weeks. And we all know the MVP award goes to the quarterback because that's the most important position on the field. So to throw in a third name, if I had to, probably Aaron Rodgers, only because Packers are undefeated. And I know that the football writers will make a case for Rodgers. So he'd be the honorable mention, but it's Josh Allen and Russell Wilson to me. No questions. So those are some observations I made from the week. We're a quarter of the way through the season. Hopefully, the pandemic and all that doesn't affect too many scheduled games going forward. The league and the Players Association sat down, came up with new protocols. So hopefully they can kind of keep it under control. Not necessarily under control because, we're still getting a lot of information on the pandemic right now, but at least they can kind of keep it manageable to where they can get through these games as safe as possible. So with that, to my favorite segment, and I'm sure yours as well, my week 4 picks. Let's see how well I did. If you remember, last week, week 3, I went 4-2. First week that I did better than 500. So hopefully I can do it again this week and start a trend going, because as I say, I'm shooting for at least 60%. But after going 4-2 last week, thinking about like 65%. But I started this season saying 60%. We'll go with that for now. So this week I picked 6 games again. If it's your first time listening, I always pick the Thursday night game, the Sunday night game, and the Monday night game. Of course, we had 2 Monday night games this week, so I did pick those 2 games anyway. So with that, let's get going with first pick, Thursday night game. It was the Jets. The Jets were a 2.5 point underdog at home against the Broncos. I took the Broncos in that matchup. The Broncos won 37-28, so that means that's a win for me. Second game was the Bears as a 2.5 point underdog at home against the Colts. I actually took the Bears in that matchup. The Colts ended up winning that game 19-11. There's a loss. Third game, that was the Chiefs-Patriots game, which, just to, I guess, give you a look behind the curtain or whatever, before Cam Newton got the whole positive test, I was going to take the Patriots in that game. Just to let you know. But once he was ruled out, I had to do the smart thing and switch the pick. So I took the Chiefs as a 6.5 point favorite over the Patriots. They won 26-10. It's another win. So right now I'm 2-1 on the week. Okay, looking good. The next game was the Raiders as a 2.5-point home underdog against the Bills. I took the Bills in that game. The Bills won 30-23. It's another win. So right now, 3-1 on the week. I have 2 more picks to go. Let's see how we did. Next game. Now this was a game because it was the 49er Eagle game. Now I knew about the 49er injuries. I know that the Eagles have some injuries as well. So it was kind of tough deciding who to go with on this one. But I ended up taking the 49ers as the 6.5-point home favorite over the Eagles. And the Eagles won that game 25-20. So that was a loss. So right now I'm 3-2, 1 game left. So maybe I can go 4-2. Repeat my last week's results. Worst case, I go 3-3. You know what? At least that's a 50% week. But the last game was the original Monday night game where the Packers were a 7.5-point home favorite against the Falcons. And if you've heard me on here talk about the Falcons, you probably understand. Clearly, I took the Packers in that game, which I did. Packers won 30-16. So that's a win. So that means I went 4-2 this week, just like last week. Recap the picks real quick. So I won with the Broncos over the Jets, Chiefs over the Patriots, Bills over the Raiders, and Packers over the Falcons. 2 losses were picking the Bears to beat the Colts, which they lost, and the Niners to beat the Eagles, which they lost. So 4-2. I will definitely take that. So after going 4-2 this week, matching 4-2 last week, I am now 12-11 on the year. So I started off slow with the first 2 weeks. I have turned it completely around. I'm now over 500 for the season, and I plan on staying there. So I'm on the road to 60% right now. So as I said in week 1, if you needed winners, I'm giving them to you. First 2 weeks was a little rough, but after weeks 3 and 4, I'm just saying. Last 2 weeks I'm 8-4, so just letting you know. But yeah. So with that, that's gonna be, I guess, the end to my week 4 recap. But just to get you, set up for next upcoming episodes. The NBA Finals Game 4 was tonight, so we'll go over that in the next episode. Just to give you a little spoiler, the Lakers did win. They are now up 3-1, but we'll, dive deep into that game and see what happened, how the Lakers were able to take the 3-1 lead, and what the Heat can possibly do to turn the series around and get back into it. But also, before I go, I do want to say, I don't know if any of you have watched the WNBA, but their finals have been going on the past couple of days, and the Seattle Storm completed the sweep against the Las Vegas Aces. So, congratulations to the Seattle Storm, the 2020 WNBA champions. So there he goes. Sue Bird, their star point guard. She got her 4th title with the Storm, so shout out to them. But looks like that's a good place to end the episode. So, if this is your first episode, you're new to the program, thank you for tuning in. Definitely would appreciate it if you went back and listened to some of the previous episodes. Can like, subscribe, follow. Oh, quick reminder, can't believe I forgot this, but this podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, so you can go on there and search for Chomping at the Bit podcast. And you can, if you do listen to your stuff on iHeartRadio, subscribe on there. That way, every time I release an episode, you'll get it right away. So just want to say that. And if you've been with me for these first 20 episodes, definitely appreciate you. You know the deal. Like, subscribe, follow. Can't believe it's already been 20 episodes. And we're going to keep going with it because I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Hope you're having a lot of fun listening to it. But yeah, so definitely be safe out there. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode. All right.